G'day battlers, and today we've got a very exciting video to watch because if you saw my previous video about V-Basic's Melmetal run in the India Qualifiers, then you might be primed for some really high quality battle content. And so today we are going to be watching MasterMihir's winning run through the second India Qualifiers. So V-Basic's run was in the first and this is the second because there were sort of two tournaments that both ran to qualify for the Indian playoffs for the World Championships in Anaheim. And so today I'm going to be joined by Mikey Morgs, who, by the way, just came top 6 in Brisbane Regional Championships, and we're going to be watching through MasterMihir's winning run through this stacked tournament. I mean, he literally plays someone who came top 4 in the World Championships last year, so well worth the watch. And if you want even more Indian Qualifier content, Mikey Morgs actually also just started a YouTube channel, and you can go and watch NavaEmpire's run over there, and there's going to be more content coming soon, so link in the description for that. But for now, let's get into the battles from MasterMihir.
Hello and welcome to the channel. I am Mikey Morgs and I am here today to talk to you about the India Qualifiers number 2 leading up to the playoffs this weekend. I am joined by PvP Steve, and today we are going to be looking through a fantastic run by the number 1 qualifier or number 1 finisher in the second India Qualifier a couple of weeks ago, and that is MasterMihir 295. How are you today, Steve?
Doing pretty good, Mikey, and definitely pretty keen to see some of these battles from the Indian trainers. I mean, for one, these Indian guys are just some of the most cracked battlers in the world. Obviously, they had someone in the top 4 of the last World Championships, and they might not get as much attention as they should get, but that is exactly why we're here to show off a Master Mihir's battles.
100%. In fact, last year, Beelzeboy was the first Indian competitor that made it to the World Champs, and then he made that really deep run. So I'm very excited to have a look through this. Um, the way that the India qualifiers work, just for those that are watching, very quickly, essentially they have a mega tournament of 250 plus competitors. They are broken into two separate qualifiers. They have them on consecutive days, and then it is the top 16 from each of these two Swiss round qualifiers is selected and makes their way through to the playoff tournament, which is what's coming up this weekend. So MasterMihir was able to finish his tournament 7-1 in Swiss brackets with a battles record of 14-4, which is incredibly high win rate. And this was the team that he used. He ran a team of Guzzlord, Shadow Annihilate, Shadow Drapion, Jumpluff, Lapras, and Clodsire, just to get our viewers a little bit more information on MasterMihir. As you can see on the screen here, these are what he ranks as his top 3, top 3 milestone achievements in Pokemon Go. He reached a peak rank in GBL of 3643 ELO. He was able to win the Wallowing Pool's prized OGL tournament in 2022, which had a good prize pool there. I think it was a couple of $100. But I think that the most impressive is he was the number 1 ranked Open Great League player in Cycle 3 for Sylph factions, which that's where all the best players in the world compete. So we can see that he can compete up at that level. When we have we'll you know what, we'll talk about his team in a minute when we're having a look at the other teams here. So we're going to jump on through there. It was quite funny, actually, the reason that I got these battles from MasterMihir, because you might remember he was in the Haydonis tournament a few weeks ago, where he actually finished second overall to Z's Wireless. And I battled him in my first round battle. And I thought, geez, this guy's going to go pretty well. And so I asked him if he could take some footage for me of how his run went through the qualifying tournament. And then I woke up the next day and all of a sudden he had swept it. So happy days for me there. So round
Yeah.
one, why don't you take us through the opponent's team here, Steve?
Sure. MasterMihir is running that Guzzlord, Shadow Drapion, Clodsire, Lapras, Jumpluff, Annihilape, as you said. But we've got a very different team here over on the opponent's side with a Talonflame, a Primeape, Credilli, Azumarill, Shadow Marowak, and Shadow Drapion. So we do have the double Drapion strat on the two different teams,
Yeah.
and then a lot of offensive pressure coming in from the Marowak, the Talonflame, and the Primeape, which is a little bit different to, I'd potentially argue, with MasterMihir having a lot of bulk on their side.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think with Master Mahir, he's got two key players in the Shadow Drapion and the Shadow Annihilate that are there to be his strikers, to be his big time chargers. Whereas the rest of the team is sort of built around being able to be very flexible with a lot of bulk. And I guess with the 50-second switch timer, generally speaking, with the sort of bulk that you can get with Clodsire, Jumpluff, and Lapras, so long as it's not severely hard counted, you can generally stall that clock out and you can make switches out of worse matchups. Whereas Goutzdcurl definitely is sitting here with what I would call four chargers or strikers in the Talonflame, the Primeape, that Shadow Kanto Marowak, and that Shadow Drapion. Um, just that one thing to note is that Goutzdcurl did also manage to make their way to qualify for the playoffs tournament. So we're seeing even in round four, Master Mahir is going up against some of the best battlers that are in the tournament here, where there was 130 competitors in this playoffs.
Yeah, which is, incredible, by the way, that, it's an A-round tournament and already Master Mihi is facing some of the best in the entire tournament and the nature of Swiss, I suppose. But I guess I'm looking at Gautz's team and that Azumarill is looking like it could be incredibly powerful into Master Mihir. It's got
Mm.
play into pretty much the entire team. You've got super effective damage for the Clodsire, the Jumpluff, the Annihilate, the Guzzlord, and you're doing quite a bit of neutral damage to the Drapion and the Lapras. So that's definitely going to be one of the big threats that Master Mihir has to deal with here in game number one with the Annihilape into the Shadow Marowak.
And one thing that I will note is that the Clodsire on Master Mahir's team is running a Stone Edge. So we've got Mahir here charging up to the 7 counters as if going for the Ice Punch and then throwing the Rage Fish straight away to just get that boost immediately into the Marowak. And then the Marowak is going to have to shield there. So already getting to an early shield advantage with this Shadow Annihilate.
Yeah, now obviously Marowak's strategies tend to revolve around using shields and trying to mudslap down, but that is the exact same story with Annihilate, where you're really just trying to use Rage Fist after Rage Fist to boost your attack and also burn the two shields. So we're seeing both trainers so far really just employing the traditional strategy for both of these Pokemon, meaning that it's really going to be about what sort of strategy we have in the back, with Annihilate actually getting the down a shield but winning switch advantage, with the Azumarill now coming in and having to eat a boosted Rage Fist.
Yeah, and look, I mean, even though this is only going to be doing neutral, as you can see there, for the bulky Azumarill, that still does a little bit of a chunk of damage. And Mahir is now going to be coming in with the Lapras, using that really powerful one-turn fast attack with the Psywave from the Lapras into the Azumarill. Might only be down a shield, but Lapras is very bulky, can take the play rough quite easily, can actually take two play roughs with relative ease. But as you can see here, is already over two sparkling areas, opting to run the coverage move here as Ice Beam instead of Skull Bash, which means that this matchup isn't necessarily quite as easy or as comfortable as it would be. But as you can see here, the sparkling area does enough for it chips away. Plus, you're getting that Psywave damage that is slowly building up, even with something with such a large HP pool as you're getting in the Azumarill. Firing off the ice beam immediately from here, I didn't really see what came in, but there was something that came in quickly there. And it's a Credilli, and this is a great matchup for Clodsire to close it out.
Oh yeah, Master Mahir is in a pretty strong position here. Again, like you mentioned, this Clodsire does not have Sludge Bomb, so we are going to be throwing, it may not be as an ideal scenario, but the Rock Tombs are going to slowly reduce the attack, but it's doing so little damage. And to be honest with you, all of Credilli's moves are going to be doing so little damage that this Clodsire is going to be really comfortable in this position, throwing just Stone Edge after Stone Edge by the looks of it, and then it is just going to come back to that relatively low health Azumarill in the back. Again, Lapras isn't in a position that it's, going to be able to dominate the Azumarill matchup, but with so much health on Clodside, this is looking really good for Master here on the whole.
Absolutely. I think the other thing is as well is that if the Lapras does come, that does have to go back into the Azumarill cannot bubble it down from that range. And the Clodsire here coming through with the Earthquake's going to do a sizable chunk of damage. I think look, I mean, Clodsire is so bulky. It's only taking neutral from Grass Knot, and this Credillia is not a shadow, so this Grass Knot's still not going to do quite enough. Good recognition there that potentially could have been Mahir could have had to look at a bubble down if he'd been a little bit too slow on the draw on the swap there. But very quick, playing proactively, getting the Lapras in, and we are going to see back-to-back Sparkling Aria here. Not quite. But I think the Clodsire is going to come in here and going to reach a move in time. And that game is actually a lot closer than I think we were giving it credit for. Gauts played that
Yeah.
incredibly well.
Yeah, I was watching those health bars at the end there and be like, oh, hang on a minute. I think MasterMihir might not necessarily have this. This Clodsire might go down to a bullet seed. Uh,
All right, we're going to go straight into the second game here, and we're going to have Lapras leading into Credilli. This is as bad a lead as you could possibly imagine in this matchup. And Mahir is going to save swap the Shadow Annihilate. I don't mind this Shadow Annihilate save swap here because the only Pokemon on the opposing team, on Gout's team, is really going to be Azumarill that's a hard check to the Annihilape, and the Annihilape can do a fair bit of work, so long as you're willing to give it, I guess, one shield as well. And so that's what we're seeing here, and we're going to see that Mahir is going to shield up the Shadow Annihilate, but the Azumarill's already into the yellow thanks to the counter damage and thanks to the Rage Fists and the Shadow Boost. So I think we're going to see that he has decided not to throw it all and is just going to use the second shield here. I do not mind this play at all because if Shadow Annihilate doesn't have a Charmer as a hard check in the back, then you are looking at a really dangerous proposition now that it is double boosted. And Mahir is looking to maximize that by undercharging so that they're in a position that, yeah, they can get an extra counter through. Gouts has been able to recognize that that's happening and has swapped out quickly, swapped out into a heavy hitting, fast move damage Pokemon in the Shadow Kanto Marowak. But Mahir meets that with his own Lapras.
Yeah, now Lapras is obviously going to be in a really strong position here. The Rock Slides are going to hurt the Lapras, but being a very bulky Pokemon, Lapras can definitely take one on the chin pretty well. We do have to remember that that Azumarill is hanging out in the back with 1 HP as well, ready to act as a catch. But the Sparkling Arias here from Lapras are going to do a lot of damage to this Marowak. If one connects, all of a sudden Marowak is going to be gone, but with a shield still in tow, the opponent's able to hold on there, taking out the Lapras. But MasterMihir is not in too bad of a spot here because, I mean, we've sort of got two options here. We've got the Clodsire, which isn't too hot, but with all of that energy that MasterMihir was able to farm up on the Azumarill, it means that this Annihilape is able to get up to a Rage Fist, which alongside the counter damage that is, we're maybe only getting one boosted one, but the Marowak able to go down, and now it is just this exact same backline that we saw in game number one. The Clodsire into the Credilli, and once again, MasterMihir has found himself in a strong position, and I would argue a lot stronger than it actually was in that first game, as long as MasterMihir doesn't sort of like fall for a catch. If he was throwing a charge attack and it managed to hit that 1 HP Azumarill, it would be a little bit disastrous, but it's going to be really hard for the opponent to get a catch with a 2-turn Clodsire against a 3-turn Bullet Seed Credilli.
Absolutely. What's the other thing as well is that Mahir was able to bring in the Clodsire first. So I was able to get that extra poison sting of energy before the Credilli started to build up energy. Um, and what I've noticed so far, and just in these first two battles with Mahir, is that he's really proactive at being on the front foot to make sure that he's controlling the tempo and the pacing of the battle. The other thing that he's done is that, for example, with the Annihilape earlier, as we just saw, was willing to make that a very quick, oh, wow, okay, quick poison sting, an attempt to catch there by Gout. And then we're going to see the Earthquake is going through onto this Credilli, and that's going to take it out.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried with the swap out there. I'm not sure. I think he was trying to catch a move, but it sort of just gave a full bullet seed to the Credilli, so it was a little bit scary there. Might have made it a bit closer than it needed to be.
Yeah, I think that the swap out there was probably needed in order to be able to clear the Rock Tomb debuff on the Clodsire
Right, right,
so
right.
that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Earthquake was going to be able to land. but both times we are talking 2 or 3 HP victories to the Clodsire from Mahir, but it did feel like Mahir was in a lot more control than necessarily was. So we're going to go straight over to the round 5 matchup here, and MasterMihir is going to be battling against a um, quite a well-known trainer within the Indian community called Surav 999R. And Sorav is running a team of Mandibuzz, Credilli, Clodsire, Lapras, Pangoro, and Shadow Drapion. Something that I noticed when I was looking through the rounds here, this is one of the few matchups that MasterMihir actually drops a game in the entire tournament too. So he went 14-4 in games, and two of those we will see at the very end today. But Sorav was able to actually take a game off him, which is not something that had happened at this stage. So at this stage of the matchup, MasterMihir was 4-0 and had won 8 games on the trot. So incredibly well done. Looking at these teams, I can see for MasterMihir, to my eyes, that Shadow Annihilape is looking relatively unchecked again and has got pretty free reign to do quite a lot of damage. Running the Ice Punch, something that is worthy of note is that the play into Clodsire, where it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a great matchup, one Rage Fist followed by an Ice Punch, inclusive of the counter damage that you get off, actually takes out a Clodsire. And so it's
Wow.
quite a good matchup if you know your matchup quite well. And so I think that we're going to see me here with a fair bit of play based around that Shadow Annihilate like we saw in the previous matchup. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. 100% agree on the big Annihilate damage. Again, with that big coverage giving you play into Pokemon like Mandibuzz that it feels like Annihilate should be weak to as a ghost fighting type against a dark flying type, but a good play against the entire rest of the squad as well. Clodsire also looks somewhat interesting as a Pokemon that also has relatively decent coverage into the entire squad because of the access to Stone Edge. Again, you've got that really good Mandibuzz coverage. We've seen its matchup into Credilli. You've got super effective damage into Lapras, although I wouldn't call that a good matchup for the Clodsire. But then, obviously the mirror matches with Clodsire resisting fighting damage from the Pangoro, and then the super effective Earthquakes ready to fire off into the Drapion. So I really feel like, we saw that in round number 4, how MasterMihir really seemed to love the Annihilate as I like the term striker that you were
Mm,
using, alongside that sort of two defensively bulky Pokemon in the back to sort of give your team a little bit of wiggle room. Even though he does play it a little bit, up tempo, he plays it a little bit trying to get that advantage, lead the game, tell you how the game is going to go by being aggressive with his swaps. I feel like this is a game where you're able to swap into the Annihilate as an aggressive swap into any Pokemon at any time. And so that feels like it could be really, really powerful for Master Mahir here.
most definitely. All right, well, let's get into the matchup here. Um, we should swap over any second now. I think it'll be interesting as well to see whether this Mandibuzz is running Snarl or Air Slash. I believe from memory that it might be on Snarl, but we'll find out now. And we are going to see that Shadow Annihilate leading into the Lapras. Just as we predicted, and Mahir is going right ahead here, and he's going to be countering into this Lapras. I understand that Lapras does have win cons in the one shield, but with the Shadow Annihilate, getting off the Rage Fist damage with the boost here, yes, can just shield once and farm all the way down and then take alignment and take control of this matchup.
Yeah, and that's what the big benefit of Shadow Annihilape over regular Annihilape is, that Shadow Annihilape does have that better matchup into the Lapras. And so the opponent, recognizing that they were not in a great spot, swaps into the Clodsire. Now, if you're Master Mihir here, it looks like he's going for the Rage Fist to just get a little bit of damage onto the Clodsire. You can sort of play this two ways. One, you could stay in with the Annihilape and try and get some bigger damage off now that you're boosted. But I think the better play is what he's gone for with the swap into the Lapras. You are going to be getting to those sparkling areas relatively quickly. We'll see if this Clodsire is a Sludge Bomber or a Stone Edge. Throws the Earthquake, which tends to mean that it is a Sludge Bomb
Mm.
Clodsire. And Lapras now in a really strong position, even shields, and the sparkling areas coming off really, really fast.
Yeah, and the sparkling area plus the sidewave damage builds up so quickly onto the Clodsire. And so Clodsire's already at another earthquake, but I think Mahir can safely no shield this and farm down with sidewave before the Clodsire is going to be able to reach another move, and has made a really intuitive swap there, Sarav into the Lapras, but Mahir's Lapras is going to be able to reach the sparkling area in time, and this is going to do pretty close to taking it out. We'll certainly put it in one counter range and comes in and snipes with the Shadow Annihilate. Fantastic play by Mahir, very heads up, as we've seen in the battles already today, taking control of this matchup. And yeah, just staying in control of this matchup and controlling the tempo and the pacing of the game, which I think is very important. Shadow Annihilate built up a little bit of energy here. It is a Snarl Mandibuzz, so not a great matchup for Sorav. However, it is a fantastic matchup for our star today, which is Mahir. Gets the shield with the Rage Fist bait, has boosted up its damage, but has decided to let the Shadow Annihilate go down in lieu of letting the Guzzlord come in to sweep. And I think this might be all she wrote there.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And this is just, one of those positions where if you're the Mandibuzz, you just know that this isn't going to go well for you. We do have the Sludge Bomb Guzzlord, which I think is a really interesting read. But at this point, there's just really nothing that Mandibuzz can do. The Dragon Tails are adding up so supremely, and just walling off that Mandibuzz quite a bit really puts you in a strong position. You've even got the Lapras back there, but we're not going to need it. This Guzzlord with Sludge Bomb alone is going to be able to take this out. I mean, this is very a la Brisbane Regional Championships in the power of Guzzlord just walling things off and farming all the way down. But even the smart tech of like, I don't know if it's smart tech, it's just like, hey, I can do this more than anything. It's a little bit BM-ish.
Yeah, just a little bit there, a little bit disrespectful from Mahir, or perhaps maybe Mahir was expecting that there was going to be a swap in there themselves, but has managed to keep the shield for the Guzzlord. Brutal Swing's going to come off. Brutal Swing's going to land. It's going to take out this Clodsire, and we are going to see a game one victory to MasterMihir. Just showcasing a mastery of being able to control the tempo and the pacing in the matchup. All right, we're going straight into game two. And game two here is we're going to be running Shadow Annihilate into the Snarl Mandibuzz. Now, when shields are up, and it's even energy. This isn't a terrible matchup for the Mandibuzz, but it's also a pretty good matchup for the Shadow Annihilate with these Ice Punches, as you've just seen. That is a very bulky Vulture Bird in the Mandibuzz, and that has done a fair chunk of damage. Mandibuzz is going to throw the Aerial Ace into the safe swapped Guzzlord, and the safe swap Guzzlord is going to be met by a Clodsire from Sorav.
Yeah, now obviously Guzzlord is just going to be throwing straight brutal swings here. The fact that Mandibuzz did throw its energy is a little bit unfortunate for Sorav, I think, but the Clodsire is going to be able to add up a bit of neutral damage onto the Clodsire. But Mahir has the option here to sort of try and protect the Guzzlord and do even more damage over time, but comfortably knows that he can take an Earthquake here. It's a little bit dangerous, but the Poison Stings aren't going to do much at all, and Guzzlord is going to comfortably be able to get some more damage off here. Now, MasterMihir again is sort of looking at a lot of different options of how we could play this battle. He's going to swap into the Lapras, recognizing again that this Clodsire does not have Stone Edge. The Earthquake is going to do some neutral damage here, but Lapras can comfortably take it, comfortably Psywave this Clodsire down, but I'm going to expect Sorav to swap out here.
Yep, and now we've got a Lapras mirror, as Sorav has brought the Lapras into Mihir's Lapras, and this is the old chip and dip strategy that they always talk about on the Play Pokemon broadcast. It's something that works really well for the Azumarill mirror matches, and it actually works even better in the Lapras mirror matches because the Scythe Wave damage is not resisted, and it builds up a lot faster over time than Bubbles do in the Azumarill mirror match. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. He's actually in quite a dangerous spot right now because the Mandibuzz still has a little bit of residual energy. The Clodsire from Sorav um, is still alive. And now we are seeing that this Lapras from Sorav has got a little bit of energy and has got that Psy-wave damage. And given that the Annihilape is not at full health here, any amount of Psywave damage is not a good thing to be taking on here. So Mahir's trying to get onto the front foot, play proactively, swapping in quickly into into the Lapras there. But Surav is right on it. Their switch times are pretty close to a line. Swaps out, throws the aerial ace straight away. And I think we're going to see potentially another aerial ace before he gets to a move. Not
Oh,
quite.
okay. We do see the
Okay.
Rage Fist coming off here. All of that energy on Mandibuzz has been pretty scary. Rage Fist isn't going to be enough to KO the Mandibuzz. Oh, actually, no, that's on solo health. It does get the Protect Shield out here, but Mandibuzz is going to get the Aerial Ace off on to the Annihilape, which is so dangerous because Annihilape is now at almost no health. Does take the Mandibuzz down, but Lapras is able to Psywave down, and now we have barely any HP here on Mihir's side, and Sparkling Aria is going to get the KO on Guzzlord. It's down to the Lapras in the back to do a lot of work, Mikey. And I don't know if we can do it.
No, I don't think so because I think Mihir's Lapras actually has less HP than the Lapras for Sorav, and we're going to see the Sarway farm down, and we're going to go straight into game number 3 now. How are we going to see? And this is now we are seeing the adjustment from Mihir, still with the same team, but leading the Guzzlord into the Mandibuzz right now.
Yeah, game two, he was a bit ABB strong into the Mandibuzz with that Annihilape in the back. He's sort of swapped the strategy over to a bit of an ABA. Again, Annihilape does have play into the Mandibuzz all the same, but now that we're in a much stronger position for Mihir, it's kind of up to Sorav to try and find out how to get the win condition, how to get the big win. Because if we imagine that Sorav is going to be running some similar Pokemon, an Annihilape in the back, it can be incredibly dangerous on Mahir's side. And so Sorav really needs to find something to do, find a way to get out of this mess because by the looks of it, they're just letting this Mandibuzz go all the way down.
Yeah, and Mandibuzz was really proving to be the most versatile Annihilate counter from games 1 and games 2. And we know that if Lapras wants to be the counter for Annihilate, it needs shields. And we also, as I mentioned before, we know what the Shadow Annihilate matchup can be like going into the Clodsire, especially, into the Clodsire. So, yeah, we're going to have to see how Surav is going to be able to get out of this. And has let the Mandibuzz go down. I imagine probably going to bring something in to farm up and get a bit of energy here on the Guzzlord, and maybe residual energy in the back line is going to be a good thing against the back line of Mahir. We're going to see the Brutal Swing thrown straight away into the Clodsire. I guess this is probably the safest Pokemon to be able to take the energy on, but if it's still going to be that Lapras Clodsire backline, I'm not really sure how Sarav is going to get out of this mess right now.
Yeah, there's a weak Clodsire. Lapras is going to come in. Super effective Psywaves, super effective Sparkling Arias, neutral Earthquake coming back from the Clodsire where you need... oh, and here is the swap. There is the Drapion in the back. So we've swapped out from the Lapras, but we're actually in almost a worse position here where Drapion still going to be taking a lot of damage from the Annihilape without the Psywave benefit. The Poison Stings are going to be resisted. And so now with two shields still in tow on both sides, I mean, look at the counters adding up here. I mean, at this point, I'm actually a little, maybe actually it makes sense to not throw the Rage Fists, recognizing that if you throw the Rage Fist, you reduce your counter damage because they will be able to use their own Protect Shields. And all of a sudden, Drapion would actually be throwing another Charge Attack. That's actually such a heads up play from MasterMihir.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, really, really well played by MasterMihir. Just an unlucky call there from Sora, basically bringing the Shadow Drapion in, maybe expecting that Mihir was going to make some kind of adjustment, but just picking the adjustment incorrectly. And with the Mandibuzz in the lead and the Shadow Drapion in the back, managed to snooker themselves into an ABA weakness to the Guzzlord and having to sort of stick it out um, uh, probably seeing the writing on the wall fairly early. But look at how much damage that triple boost of Rage Fist does to the Clodsire there. The Clodsire is going to be able to take it out, but this is within one Sidewave's worth of damage now, I would imagine. And there's that Sludge Bomb that we pictured, but it's just going to be one counter required to take that out. And what a fantastic win from Master Mahir there in game 3 against Sorav. Something that I have noticed now looking through these matchups as we're watching, Mahir definitely is working with their team to control that switch timer and looking to control pacing and tempo. And I think that that's what we've noticed in the Might and Mastery season is it's not necessarily about particular or specific matchups one on one. It is more about controlling the tempo and the pacing of the game as a whole. Um, so, as we are seeing here, we are seeing Mihir's team, which is relatively flexible and is all about controlling pacing and matchups. And we're seeing that go into one Scarlet Wizards team, which I have to say is probably the most alignment heavy RPS team that we have seen today so far, with the Shadow Kanto Marowak, the Shadow Drapion, which is pretty flexible, the Lapras, which is pretty flexible, the Goudra, which is pretty flexible, the regular Annihilape, and then the Wigglytuff, which is heavily reliant on fast move alignment based play. Um, One Scarlet Wiz, this is a player that we have heard of before, qualified for the World Championships last season, but was unable to make it through. I think one of the most talented and talented battlers in all of India, and is always featured right at the top of the tree when people are talking about the best battlers in that region. When you're looking at these matchups very quickly, what are you seeing here, Steve?
When you face a team like Scarlet Wizards, where there is that really heavy fast attack pressure, you need to think about the flexibility of the teams that you bring yourself. When they have a Wigglytuff, you can't necessarily risk bringing both Guzzlord and Annihilape in the same team of three because you are really putting yourself in a position where you might get stuck in a really dangerous position. Of course, there's ABB options, but you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage if you go for that sort of line. Instead, you have to lean into Pokemon that, can maybe have a bit more flexibility across the board. Try not be too weak to, one Pokemon in particular. Again, another example is having both Drapion and Clodsire on the same team can be really dangerous when the opponent has a Kanto Marowak because they have such a strong matchup into you. They're able to, give themselves shields, get energy, and put themselves into a really strong position. At the same time, though, you can sort of use that to your advantage and you can say, well, if Scarlet Wiz runs the Marowak, the traditional strategy is going to be having that Marowak in the lead so that they can get that energy advantage with shields in play. And so you can sort of try and use that to make some predictions. Mihir hasn't been afraid to try and make a few predictions again, running ABA in that last game, trying to catch that Mandibuzz lead and succeeding in catching the Mandibuzz lead. I could really see Mihir going in a few different ways to try and work this out, but I'll say at a minimum, Lapras is looking really strong for me here.
I actually think for me here as well that this jump off is looking really safe. So I've been running a lot of regular jump off myself. I ran that at Brisbane, and into this matchup here, it's actually looking pretty good. The only thing that's dealing sort of super effective fast move damage is the Shadow Drapion. Personally, I actually don't mind the Shadow Drapion matchup for regular jump off because you've got the bulk that you can generally, without debuffing, you can take you can take two crunches and you can reach two acrobatics before it reaches the third crunch. Um, and so, depending on whether the Lapras for one Scarlet Wiz is running Ice Beam, then you're looking at a fair chunk of time is needed and a lot of turns are needed to get to super effective moves on the jump off. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see MasterMihir take advantage of that as we've seen today. Really is looking for as much flexibility in being able to take advantage of those matchups as possible. So we'll probably get into the matchup relatively quickly. I think for one Scarlet Wiz, the Goudra is an interesting call as well. We saw the Goudra do very, very well in Brisbane for Valiant Fish, and I don't think that they were team building together because otherwise he wouldn't be running Wigglytuff. But we are moving into this matchup now. We are going to see the Lapras from MasterMihir into the Wigglytuff, and we have got the favourite Shadow Annihilate, which MasterMihir did mention. Well, if it was unchecked, was basically his MVP of the tournament, and we are going to see that regular jump off in the back. We're going to see a swap out from one Scarlet Wiz out of the Wigglytuff into the Lapras themselves to be able to take the Sparkling Aria damage, and then we're going to see the Shadow Annihilate come in here to get a counter down, but throwing the one Rage Fist early enough so isn't going to have to use two shields in order to get through this Lapras.
Yeah, it's a really nice catch from Scarlet Wiz, but then you've got the Annihilate that is just going to be in such a strong position into you that you're sort of just feeding this Annihilape, getting it ready to go. But at the same time, Mikey, you are baiting out, the Annihilape so that Wigglytuff is going to be able to come in. You've only got Rage Fist and Ice Punches to throw. And so Wigglytuff is actually going to get almost the full charm down before this Ice Punch comes through. But one boosted Ice Punch won't be enough to KO the Wigglytuff, but it is at least going to take. Actually, it really gets close, but the Annihilape is going to go down. And now, I mean, Scarlet Witch only has one Pokemon, and it is this Drapion, and that's going to be a tough order.
Yeah, the Shadow Drapion doesn't really love this matchup against Lapras, even though theoretically in your head you think, oh well, Dark type is gonna should be resistant to Psywave damage. I think that you've spoken about before that the way that the mathematics works, it works out. Generally speaking, most Shadow Drapion are still going to be taking 2 damage per Psywave, right? And so that puts it in a position where if you have to let one Sparkling Aria go, you get farmed down by the Lapras. And this is why I love this jump off versus Shadow Drapion matchup there. As you can see, the one crunch has not done enough damage to be a super threat into the jump off. The jump off can now just easily no shield has been able to take that shield off the Drapion. We're going to see the crunch coming through now, but then this Lapras is going to be able to come through. And so long as Mahir stays cognizant of the fact that there is a Wigglytuff for a catch in the back here, I think that this Lapras is going to be able to reach the Sparkling Aria and sweep this end game.
Yeah, a little bit of an early swap from Scarlet Wiz, maybe just lost track of the counts a little bit. But look, now that Drapion comes back in, an Ice Beam actually going to be thrown from the Lapras here. It does do a little bit more raw damage. And so I'm here just really trying to get that quick KO, secure the game. And there it is connecting. And that takes game number one. Really just dominant fashion from the Annihilape, to be honest with you. Basically took out like most of the team itself.
Yeah, absolutely. No shielding the Ice Punch there with the Wigglytuff that had quite a bit of health. I think probably made life very difficult for one Scarlet Wiz to come back from there. And it didn't help that the Shadow Drapion isn't necessarily the bulkiest of Pokemon. So we are going to be seeing another good lead for me here with the Lapras leading into the Shadow Kanto Marowak from one Scarlet Wiz. As we've seen in this matchup before, yes, the Rock Slide does quite a bit of super effective damage, but the Shadow Kanto Marowak needs to shield everything here from the Lapras, and that's what we're seeing first up. The Shadow Kanto Marowak is still building up energy and has just got a little bit greedy and is now going to have to either eat a Sparkling Aria or use a second Protect Shield in this lead matchup, and things are not looking good for one Scarlet Wiz already.
Yeah, that's such a tough position to be in. Down 2 shields. You are finally throwing some energy here. The Bone Club actually undercharged, maybe? I'm not quite sure what happened there, but at this point, I mean, it's probably enough that we get a KO here. Maybe they were predicting a catch even. Actually, now that I think about it, but the Bone Club is going to be enough to get the KO on the Lapras now. And now Jumpluff is in such a strong position. You can really just eat all of that energy from the Marowak. You could even burn a shield if you really wanted to, but a single Aerial Ace is going to do a lot of damage from this Jumpluff as well and put Mahir in a position that's going to be pretty tough to come back from.
Yeah, absolutely. And decides to shield up this rock slide. And I think that that was a very clever shield because as we saw when we were having a look at the teams before, the Jump Life has a pretty good matchup into everything. And the Acrobatics, which is a heavy hitting fast move, heavy hitting charge move, is not resisted in any way, shape, or form by one Scarlet Wizard's team. And so we are going to see the Jump Life reach the move at the same time as the Drapion, letting this crunch go through. I assume it's a crunch and he's not going for a bait. The crunch comes through. You're going to see some heavy neutral damage coming from this acrobatics right now. And then I wouldn't be surprised if here maybe even just swaps in with the Drapion to get some energy, get ahead on energy. And we are seeing the Wigglytuff in the back. And I think that's all she wrote because even though the Wigglytuff is dealing quite a lot of charm damage, there is a shield on Mahir's side, and these Aqua Tails will come through thick and fast, along with the super effective Poison Sting damage, and that is just a masterful gameplay by Mahir right there.
Yeah, I think Scarlet Wiz was actually super confident here. I think they were like, look, it's going to be Annihilape in the back. My Wigglytuff is going to be able to come in and destroy that Annihilape. But Mihir made the swap up, took Annihilape out of the team entirely, and now it is the poison type Drapion that gets to go up against that Wiggly in the back. The Aqua Tail is going to be enough here to take out the Wigglytuff when it eventually goes through. And then it is just, yeah, it is GG's here. There's a little bit of HP remaining on that Marowak. We only need actually on the Marowak, on the
Drapion.
it's a lead. Drapion. And yeah, this Aqua is going to be enough, and that's going to be GG's. I was like, where were we again? But yeah, this is pretty well played. And unfortunately, for Wigglytuff enjoyers, not exactly showing Wigglytuff's prowess in the Might and Mastery season so far.
Yeah, sorry, Debbie Pebble. That's what we're going to have to see there, and it's going to go down. And that was a fantastic matchup that we just saw from one Scarlet Wiz. We're going to skip round 7, and that is going to be a separate video because I did manage to get footage from 2 of the battlers in this Indian Qualifier number 2. One of them was MasterMihir, who swept the whole tournament or finished 7-1. And the second happened to be NavaEmpire, who those in the grassroots community should already know, who actually finished second overall in the qualifying tournament. And because we have footage from both of these battlers, I thought it would be fun to be able to see it broadcast play Pokemon style with the footage from both side by side. And very much looking forward to that. So we're going to skip ahead to round 8 right now, where we are seeing Mihir against a battler that we did mention earlier on in the video, which it was the only Indian representative ever at the Play Pokemon World Championships, and that is Beelzeboy. And look, Beelzeboy right here is running a very different team, and I, I'm having a look at this team right here, and it feels like Beelzeboy is running one Pokemon from every season of the last 6 seasons. Steve, what are you thinking looking at this team?
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. I've got Metacham from the days of old, followed by the Swampert coming in. Mandibuzz then joined the meta. We had Talonflame joining the meta following that. Carbink, came out after the, I guess, previous World Championships, or right before, but then was eligible right after. And then Goutzdcurl being the sort of brand new, one of the new additions coming in through the Might and Mastery season. I absolutely love to see it. I mean, Beelzeboy is also coming in here already with a World's invitation from his performance in the last World Championships. And so I feel like he's come in here. He's certainly not coming in to lose, but he's come in, a little bit more confident in being able to run something off the meta. And he is still doing so well. He is already qualified for the playoffs at this stage of the tournament and is now facing off against MasterMihir. Just really, really fun to see. But as we look at these two teams, one Pokemon that does stand out a little bit from Beelzeboy is the Swampert. A Swampert is kind of an interesting Pokemon that we don't get to see very often. It does have some bad matchups into MasterMihir's team. And actually, the more that I look at it, quite a few bad matchups, especially if we're assuming that it is running Sludge. But I would imagine that it's tough because you could run Sludge Hydro Cannon, which I think is the default move set. It's hard to lose Earthquake, especially as I'm looking down a Clodsire and a Drapion.
Well, I think with both of those matchups, the Hydro Cannon is such a
Yeah.
bastard charged attack. It is, well, one of the best, if not, a top 2 or 3 charge attack in the game. And that Hydro Cannon is going to be doing very well into a lot of this matchup. I think that the Guzzlord is a pretty bad matchup for the Swampert. The jump
Mm.
off, even though the Sludge is going off in 5 moves, I think it does take at least, I think it takes 3 Sludges to take out the jump off
Oof.
because the mud shots are completely resisted. What I'm looking at here from Beelzeboy, which is really scary if I'm MasterMihir, is actually that Carbink. Now, if that Carbink lands in the wrong place for MasterMihir, you are looking at something that is potentially going to wreck through quite a lot of your team. The Carbink has a great matchup into the Guzzlord resisting everything, has a great matchup into the Lapras doing super effective rock throw and power gem damage into the Lapras, has a very good matchup into the Shadow Drapion, um, given that it's just got so much bulk, it's doing so much neutral damage, and does have the Moonblast if it needs it. But generally speaking, the Carbink is just going to throw Power Gems in that matchup. Has got a great matchup into the Jump Off because the Jump Off is not running any grass type coverage. And the only matchup that is really a very dominant loss is going to be the Clodsire. Um, as, for myself as a battler, I actually really enjoy being the Annihilape into the Carbink matchup. However, if shields are down, you are not going to live a Moonblast. So it'll be interesting to see how Beelzeboy pivots around that Pokemon and what Mihir's strategy is to get around this team. I'm seeing that there is going to be a fair bit of alignment-based play from Beelzeboy, and we're going to need to see a lot of tempo mastery from Mihir right now. But we have seen throughout today's battles that MasterMihir has been able to control the tempo and get his energy where he needs it. And I am excited to see how they go up against one of the best trainers on the planet. Mihir, I did ask, who do you think is the biggest danger player going into the playoffs? And Mihir said, most definitely, without a doubt, it is Beelzeboy, because Beelzeboy is often running something you are not prepared for. And yeah, we saw that at the World Championships, and I think we are seeing that right now. So going into game one, we are going to see the Shadow Drapion leading into the Swampert, as you predicted, and this is not a great matchup for the Shadow Drapion.
Yeah, no, really good alignment for Beelzeboy. So we see the Lapras swap out, but here comes the Carbink. But this is a bit of an interesting one because both Pokemon do have ability to throw super effective damage at each other. Obviously, the Sparkling Arias do add up a nice little bit of damage to Carbink, but it is such a bulky Pokemon, and coming from a bulky Pokemon like Lapras, it can take it decently, but these rock damage is also going to be doing a lot, and you can also Carbink has the benefit of doing super effective fast attack damage as well, whereas the Psy Waves are only neutral.
And because Carbink has got such an enormous HP pool as well, from memory, yeah, it's got a very, very large HP pool. That means that it's able to take this Psywave damage without it necessarily being awful. So if it didn't have a very large HP pool, but was instead being a very, oh, what a fantastic, potentially a fantastic catch here from Master here. I believe this will be the Power Gem. Yes,
Wow. Wow.
very, very well done. This is an exceptional play here from me here, and we are going to see the Psycho Cut Medicham is coming in against the Annihilape, and we have a charge attack tie here on the Rage Fist into the Medicham, letting that move go through. And it looks like Beelzeboy is in a little bit of a dominant position here, despite the fact that Mihir is making some pretty exceptional plays.
Yeah, that catch was absolutely huge, but the Annihilape here, oh, isn't quite going to be able to get to another move, meaning that this Medicham has a lot of energy that it has been able to farm up. Drapion isn't going to get one hit KO'd by any move out of that Medicham. The Dynamic Punch presumably coming in here, going to bring Drapion down to half health, and the Swampert is now going to come back in, but there is not a lot of juice left in Mihir's tank because this Drapion is going to go down to one Hydro Cannon. There is barely any health remaining in the back line, and none of these charge attacks are going to KO that Swampert. Lapras swaps in, maybe trying to catch a move here, but actually, we do have a lot of energy here, so I guess, you're trying everything you can.
Yeah, trying everything that you can, but I think that the Swampert can just mud shot down, in two shield mud shot down, and then it's going to be able to actually mud shot down the Shadow Drapion before the Drapion can reach a crunch. And I think that this has been masterfully played here by Beelzeboy. He's going to throw the move. He's going to shield it up, but I think potentially you can see the writing on the wall, and that is what's going on right now. And as you predicted very, very well, the Swampert has some really good play in this matchup to begin with. And something that we didn't mention, Medicham receiving a buff in the Might and Mastery season with the Dynamic Punch energy having been decreased. And so I think with the fast charging move, Psycho Cut, and the Dynamic Punch, it is a really potent combination. We just haven't seen a lot of it yet in the official play Pokemon circuit. But Beelzeboy here is showing why that was such a fantastic update for them. Landing the Ice Punch, getting the farm down with Psycho Cut before Annihilape's able to get to another Rage Fist, and then having the hard hitting dynamic punch to go straight into that Shadow Drapion, which is something that we are always going to see in most matchups within the series. So Master here right now, back against the wall. We haven't seen Mahir go down 0-1 in any games so far. And so this is the first time that we're seeing it. And we just wondering what adjustment he's going to be able to make in order to be able to counter this very difficult team from Beelzeboy.
Yeah, there's so many different answers to all of his Pokemon, and a decent start, I guess, for Master Me here. You do have these resisted sideways from Lapras going into a Dark type Mandibuzz, but at least you have access to that super effective Ice Beam that, if you were able to start getting them through, is going to outpace the damage onto the Mandibuzz faster than it can put damage onto the bulky Lapras. And so Mihir, in a bit of a strong position here, does get the first Protect Shield, and you can see that we are running the Annihilape Drapion in the back as well.
Yeah, and look, whilst it might not necessarily be the best matchup for Lapras, it is a lot better than the Carbink matchup that it was stuck in last time. And so
Oh, yeah.
Lapras is going to be able to take this charge move damage from Mandibuzz. As we know, Mandibuzz is not built to be a striker, as I said before, and doesn't really hit all that hard with its charge moves. It is more about being a stayer and being a bulky Pokemon that gives you time. And we're going to see the Ice Beam come through, does quite a healthy amount of damage, but this Lapras is going to need a shield if it wants to win this matchup. It's going to let it go down. I imagine that we might be about to see a Shadow Annihilate farm down here. Very, very well.
Oh,
Okay, we have seen a Psycho Cut come through from the Medicham to KO the Lapras, and that is really high level play there from Beelzeboy, recognizing that the Medicham's energy is going to go lots of places. And that's exactly where this dynamic punch has gone straight onto the Shadow Drapion, doing about 70% of its health. And Mahir, with two shields still remaining, is going to throw off the crunch right now into that Medicham.
the defense drop does come through from the Drapion, which means that this Aqua Tail is actually going to do a lot of damage to the Medicham. And I'm kind of just wondering, was the Medicham a ploy to try and, bait out the Annihilate, hope that whatever is in the back for Beelzeboy could be in a little bit of a better position, because now the Medicham is going to be able to secure the knockout onto this Drapion, and it's all down to the Annihilape. Annihilape is going to be in a pretty decent spot here with 2 shields to 0. I mean, this is Annihilape's dream for the most part, but it first has to get through this Medicham with energy. And so with Ice Punch, you are going to get 1 shielded here, and the swap comes back in for the Mandibuzz. You need to get an Ice Punch for the KO, and it's real. We're now in a spot where Master Mahir has to make some tough choices. Decides to shield up this Mandibuzz, but we don't know what's in the back. And 0 shield Annihilape now needs to get through 3 Pokemon. Can he do it?
Yeah. And so in order to be able to, and just doesn't quite get the counter down there. Beelzeboy just knowing his matchups inside and out so perfectly. And now Annihilape is in a really tough position. He's going to have to throw energy immediately if Medicham comes in. And I don't imagine that there's going to be much in the backline. And it is a tough
Oh,
fight. And I believe that maybe
Ugh.
just one Incinerate is probably going to take out this Annihilape here. Maybe a second Incinerate is, yeah.
Yeah.
And Mahir doing everything that they can, but just been read like a book by Beelzeboy there, unfortunately. And that is going to be all she wrote. Unfortunate loss there. That sometimes happens in Swiss, but we have still seen a really impressive run from Master Mahir going 7-1, 14 wins, 4 game losses. Wow, with well, obviously, I really love the team because I ran something very similar in Brisbane, just without the
With
guzzler,
success,
with
mind you.
the Zoomerl instead. Well, relative success, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
Um, and we're going to be seeing, as I said before, some footage from NavaEmpire that I'm going to talk about, and then we'll be able to watch their matchup between MasterMihir and NavaEmpire there. As the 1 and 2 competitor. What I will note for you all right now is that there are 11 different Pokemon in the top 2 teams. And if you even extend that a little bit further, There are 14 different Pokemon in the top 3 teams of this qualifiers tournament.
Yeah, I mean, this really speaks to the Might and Mastery season in a sense, and it's something that, we've seen a lot of variety in both Stockholm and Brisbane since these battles played out as well. But just the uniqueness, the different ways that you can approach this meta have really been incredible to see. And I mean, for one, I'm really looking forward to seeing that MasterMihir versus NavaEmpire matchup with so many unique picks on both sides, with such talent on both sides as well. I mean, that's going to be a really cracker of a battle. So definitely stay tuned for that one. But at the same time, I'm just sort of I'm in awe of like how well those battles were played from Master Mihir. Beelzeboy, did have his number in that very final round, but throughout the entire tournament, Master Mihir was really just able to recognize where the best path towards a win con was. It felt like multiple times Master Mihir had so much control of the battle that there were multiple paths that he could take that all seemed relatively decent. And quite regularly, he would seem to pick the one that was the absolute best of the bunch, tuning out the noise and just going like, this is my path. I'm going to go down here and this is going to work out for me. I'm going to take this little bit of an advantage. And this little bit of advantage, I'm just going to be able to grow it and grow it and grow it until I'm the only one with Pokemon remaining on the battlefield.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we saw some, even though some matchups were incredibly tight in the end game. For example, I just think about those round 4 matchups against Goutzdcurl, where both matchups were, 1 or 2 HP victories on the COD side that was left. It never felt like Mahir had lost control of the matchup or the tempo. And I think that that's the most important thing for this season, for the Might and Mastery season. And that's something that we definitely saw harking back, to the Brisbane regional just because it just went. That's something that we saw from Godzilla that was able to win, was able to take victory. Godzilla was never really put in a position where he had to play at the pace of his opponent. And that's definitely something that we saw from MasterMihir throughout the day until he played up against Beelzeboy, and Beelzeboy's highly disruptive team composition was a little bit difficult to get around. But by that stage, Mahir had already secured the top spot, going 12-2 through Swiss bracket going 14-2 with a 7-0 run at that stage. So stay tuned for the next video that you see pop up. And keep an eye out this weekend because the India playoffs are starting this weekend, where the top 32 battlers in India are going to be fighting it out for a seat or for their qualification ticket for Anaheim in California at the World Championships.
Yeah, it's going to be really incredible to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of battles from there as well. I mean, these Indians battlers really just are, some of the best in the world. It's a region that is really underrepresented in a lot of scenes. Really doesn't get the spotlight that I think they deserve. But I really do think that if you're at the World Championships and you're facing one of these Indian battlers, you really are going to have to start sweat, and you're going to have to start thinking about. You're going to have to play your best if you want to get those wins to fight and become the 2025 World Champion.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Thank you very much for joining me today, Steve. Thank you for joining me, everybody out there today. Enjoy the video, like and subscribe, all that nonsense, and I will let you get back to your day. Thank you very much, everyone. Cheers.
Gotcha.